Hey guys, welcome back. This is episode number 10. This is our fourth and final vlog from the East Coast trip we took with my buddy Jeff Karras.
Hey Brad, you want a beer?
Yeah, I'm doing the intro thing for the vlog. Sorry about that. A few of you guys have commented that you don't like me doing these intros from that super boring room in my place, so I decided to go to a buddy's place and do the intros in a equally boring setting, I guess. I just want to say I had a great time on the East Coast. Everyone out there was really friendly. It was a great poker room, and it was fun to run into a few people who had actually seen the vlog before. That was super cool. And if you ever see me in a casino, please feel free to say hi. We can talk about life or poker or Andrew Nemi. I just want to say one thing, I guess, about him. Does Andrew have the best vlog out there? Yeah, sure, he does. Does he seem like a super cool guy in real life? Yes, he does. Is his production value good? Blah, 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 blah. You know, I hate to be the guy who does this, but Andrew, he's a bit of a jerk, you know?
Oh, hey Brad. Hey, I made you a couple of these grilled cheese sandwiches. Oh, were you shooting the vlog?
Yeah, I was kind of just...
Sorry about that, man. I just made a couple of grilled cheese sandwiches. I thought you might want one. I put the pepper jack and the cheddar on there. I know you like it that way, but sorry about that, man. Let me know if you need anything else, though.
All right. Well, let's just get into the vlog. It's January 16th. We're moving on up. We're getting upgraded a little bit. 5 days in. Fuck you. Throwing backpacks at me. Look at this, they got a reading lane. They don't have that at the Days Inn.
There's legitimately no chance you're gonna use that footage.
So it's 3 a.m. My sleep schedule's officially about as messed up as it could possibly be, but we are headed downstairs. We are going to play some 2-5 as soon as we get some food, and hopefully everything's gonna go well. This will probably be our last session of the trip. I just saw the table they're planning on putting me at. Playing shorthanded, looks really, really good.
Yeah, 5 green, 5 red.
Cool, thank you. Here we are in the last session of the trip. I sit down in the game at about 3:30 a.m. and we're playing 7-handed. In the second orbit, I look down and see ace-jack offsuit under the gun, and in most 9-handed games, I'd probably just fold it since it's not suited and it can get you into a lot of difficult situations playing post-flop out of position, but since we're playing 7-handed here, I decided to raise to 20. A very aggressive and good player directly to my left calls. It folds back to the big blind, who's a recreational player, and he calls as well, so we go 3 ways to the flop. The pot is $62, and the flop comes out Jack 9-8 with 2 diamonds. This is a decent flop for us. We have top and the nut backdoor flush draw, but it's extremely draw heavy and likely to hit my opponent's ranges as well. There are a few straight possibilities, certainly some sets they could conceivably have, and every connected hand from King Queen down to 6-5 has made either 2 pair, 1 pair, an open-ended straight draw, or a gut shot straight draw. The big blind checks, and I could bet here, but instead I check knowing that the player to my left is aggressive and will probably bet for me. I want to pot control here and make sure that I can get to showdown, and I don't really mind either way if it checks through or if I have to go into check call mode. To my surprise, my opponent bets $65, which is slightly more than the pot, and now I'm somewhat concerned. This is just an absolutely atrocious board to bluff at since there's so many draws, so I imagine he has a pretty decent hand here. The big blind folds and I call, thinking that there are a lot of hands he could have that I'm ahead of, like King Jack, Queen Jack, Jack 10, 10-9, 10-8, or some semi-bluff hands. I just can't check fold to a single bet. The turn comes out and it's another 8, and this is actually a pretty good card for us. The only additional hand that we're losing to that might take the same line is a hand like 10-8. And the reason why this is a good card for us also is because it reduces the amount of possible combinations of some of the hands that I thought we might be losing to, like pocket 8s, 9-8, or Jack 8. So I check and he bets 125. I kind of get the feeling that we're beat here, but we can't quite fold just yet. We call, hoping that we're not up against a monster and that it'll check through on the river. The river is the 6 of hearts. It's another good card if we were already in the lead. I check and he checks behind. Turns out we both have ace jack, so we chop up the pot, and after the way the hand played on the flop and the turn, I'm happy just to get the showdown cheaply and get my money back. Just when you think we're done with ace jack, we pick it up again. This time we're in the big blind and we switch seats to get position on the aggressive opponent. 3 players limp in and the small blind completes. I check, and this is the best hand I'm going to be checking with. I'm doing this because the players who have limped don't seem to like folding at all, and I don't want to play 3 or 4 handed in a big pot out of position. Also, I don't want to reopen the pot. We go 4 ways to the flop, and it comes ace 6 deuce with 2 hearts. The small blind checks, I bet 15 into 25, 2 of the limpers call, and the small blind calls as well. I think it's pretty likely that I'm up against at least one worse ace. Better aces should have raised pre-flop, and I'm probably up against some drawing hands as well. There's also some possibility that one of the opponents is slow playing a big hand, but that would most likely be the first caller, since the second caller on the button and the third caller in the small blind would have probably put in a raise with 2 pair or better. The turn is the 10 of clubs, and there are now 2 flush draws. The small blind checks, I bet 55 into 85. If anyone has 2 pair or better, I expect to find out right now. There are just too many draws for any of the opponents to slow play at this point. The player in the cutoff calls, and he's a rec player who's basically the definition of a calling station. The button folds, and the small blind, who was the aggressive player from the last hand, calls too. The river is the 3 of clubs. The backdoor flush draw gets there, but it's not a card we need to worry about too much, especially once the small blind checks, since he'd be the most likely candidate to have some kind of backdoor flush draw or gut shot straight draw, and he probably would have bet if he made his hand. We already determined that if someone had us beat by the turn, we'd have most likely gotten raised earlier in the hand, so the river doesn't change anything except the calling station might have 3-outed us and made 2 pair with ace 3, but this seems a little too unlikely to be that concerned, so we go for 3rd street of value. Generally, I check on either the turn or the river in a situation like this against multiple opponents, but since we didn't raise pre-flop, our hand is slightly under-repped, and our primary opponent at this point is the calling station, so we can go for value somewhat lighter than usual. I bet 110 into 250, and the cutoff ends up calling. The small blind tanks, and he folds. I turn over ace jack, and it's good. The rec player in the cutoff turns over 1 ace, and then he mucks, and the small blind says, "That's so sick, I had an ace too." Glad we somehow came out of this one with a win. This next hand is an example of what not to do when you're making a poker vlog. It folds to the button, who raises to 15. The small blind folds. I look down at pocket kings in the big blind, and I raise to what I think is 55. I'm pretty excited. I grab my phone, put it on the table, start the video, and right about now is when I realize I accidentally made it 80. The button is pretty confused, and he ends up tank folding. I guess it's not the biggest mistake, but I can't be doing that too often. That was a misclick. Misclick? Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Wow.
I
didn't mean to make it 80, that's for sure.
It's pretty sick, man.
Have a great day.
You were just trying to call?
No, I was trying to raise, but no. I was trying to make it 55, actually. I'm 3 wins.
Okay, back to the hands where I'm not doing things on accident. Here we're on the button, 4 players limping ahead of me. I look down at pocket aces. Now if you don't know, this is a fairly good spot to be in. I'm gonna raise, but we need to determine how much. My base raise on the East Coast is a little bit higher than it is in Vegas because the players tend to buy in for bigger amounts on average, and every single one of them hates to fold. In Vegas, if I'm first in the pot, my standard raise size is 15, but out here it's 20. I now add $5 for every player who is limped in, so with 4 limpers, that will get me to a raise of 40. And because there are so many people who have already shown interest in this pot, I don't want more than 1 or 2 opponents seeing the flop with me, so I added $5 more to the raise size just to hopefully narrow down the field to 1 or 2 opponents. I make it 45, and I guess I should have made it more because 3 out of the 4 limpers called, which isn't ideal for me, but I've got the best hand going into the flop, and I'm in position, so I'm pretty happy. The flop comes 7 deuce deuce, which is about the best flop I could ask for. There are really only 4 combinations of hands I need to be worried about, which are 3 combinations of pocket 7s and 1 combination of pocket deuces. So the 3 players check to me, and I bet 105 into 192. The only caller is this really sweet little Asian woman whose remaining stack consists of 5 red chips, and everyone else folds. The turn is the 5 of diamonds, she goes all in, I call. The river is a queen, she turns over pocket 4s, I turn over my hand, and I take down the pot. In this hand we're in middle position and we have pocket 8s. It folds to us, we raise to 20, the cutoff calls, and we go heads up to the flop. The flop comes king high, we check, and our opponent checks as well. The turn is a 4, we're probably ahead, so we bet 15, hoping to get called by a pair of 7s, a flush draw, a straight draw, or a worse pocket pair. Our opponent calls, and the river is a magical 8. Now, I said in an earlier episode that I don't like check raising very much because our opponent has to have a hand that's strong enough to bet and also strong enough to be able to call a raise. And those things just don't happen often enough for check raising to be profitable in most situations. You just lose so much value when you check and your opponent checks back. But in this particular situation, I think that he should be betting if he has a king. He'll definitely bet if he has a 4. And if he had an open-ended straight draw, for instance, he got there. If he was on a flush draw, then he missed, but he might turn his hand into a bluff. So I check, and unfortunately he checks back. He has pocket jacks, so he had one of the few hands that isn't necessarily strong enough to bet, but he probably would have called a bet. So I ended up losing a little bit of value in this particular situation by not betting, but I don't necessarily mind how I played the hand. You guys ready to see what a poker room looks like at 7:15 in the morning? So it's almost completely empty, and now we'll cut back to what it looked like on Friday night. A little bit different. Alright, this is the last hand that we really played on our East Coast trip. I look down at pocket queens in the big blind. The player under the gun +1 opens to 20. 2 players call, and I 3-bet to 115. When I 3-bet, I'm always going to raise to at least 3 times the original bet size, plus I'll add 1 increment of that bet size for every caller in between. And since I'm out of position, I added a little more to the raise, and that's how I arrived at the 115 number. The initial pre-flop raiser calls, and the other 2 players fold. We go heads up to the flop. The flop is ace 9-7 rainbow. It's not the best flop in the world, but there are plenty of other hands we could be up against besides ace-king and ace-queen. So I check, and sometimes I'll bet small here. Just depends on the opponent that I'm up against. The opponent in this situation plays really straightforward, and she ends up checking back, so I feel pretty confident that we have the best hand. The turn is a king, and despite it being another overcard, it doesn't really change much. Since she didn't bet the flop, it's very unlikely that she has ace-king, and she didn't 4-bet pre-flop, so it's also very unlikely that she has pocket kings. There shouldn't be too many other hands in a range that contain a king, but I don't see much reason to bet here. I check, and she checks back again. The river is another 7, and I'm fairly certain we have the best hand, but what worse hand can call a bet? The truth is, you never know. If you're almost certain you're ahead, you need to put out a bet and give your opponent an opportunity to make a mistake. I bet 60, which is slightly more than 1/4 pot. I may never be bluffing in this situation, but a lot of times people just hate folding for these small amounts and they get curious enough to call. She ends up folding, that's okay. We win one last pot for the trip. There wasn't really a single medium or large pot that we lost today. We ran really well and ended the trip on a high note.
Almost 9 a.m. I'm up about $600. I played for I think a little over 30 hours on this trip so far, and I've won close to $4,000 playing 2-5. I just felt like I had to tell you guys that this isn't something that's really possible or sustainable in the long run. It's great to have good runs like this. They don't happen often, so you have to enjoy it. Don't let it affect how you play too much, and just know that it's not going to last forever. You have to be real about your expectations. I guess that's it. I'm going to cash out in a little bit because I'm tired, and there's a few more things that I want to do in Washington, D.C. while I'm out here.
He never looks like he won. I mean,
Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
You cashing out?
Yep.
You're not recording that, are you?
Oh. It's 9:30. We just played a 6-hour session. Went to Honey's Fried Chicken and Donuts for breakfast here with Jeff. And we just got our food. Looks pretty good. Nom nom nom. Did you get 6 donuts? Now we are basically all done with our trip here on the East Coast, but I do want to just go ahead and point out some differences. Out here on the East Coast, they have what you call a water closet. Let's go ahead and hit this button. All right, turns on the light in here. We'll zoom out a little bit. Yeah, see on the West Coast, this is what one might call a bathroom. All right, we're heading out of the casino right now. Had a good trip so far. This is it though. This is the last time we're picking up our car at valet here at MGM. We had a good trip, it was a lot of fun. Hope you guys enjoyed it. See you guys in Vegas. Hey guys, that's it for our East Coast trip. I hope you liked it. We had a lot of fun making it here with Andrew. Special thanks to him. And if you did like it, please hit that like and subscribe button.